Hello and welcome to Hope Unabridged. I'm Casey Brennan.
I'm Angie Elkins.
And it's Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And we have such a special show for us today. We are talking with Joel Smallbone from For King and Country on their new album. And we are so excited to talk to him.
We're so excited. So we were talking earlier about just some things that we do to reach out in our community and bless others at Christmas. So tell me about that. Tell me, what are some things you do?
We've done Harvest House, where we pack toys.
The Harvest Food Bank?
Harvest Food Bank. Thank you.
Yes,
I'm like, I can't remember that name. But yes, we've done that in the past. This year we're going to do Nathaniel's Hope. Same thing. We're going to host a little toy drive. It's an organization for special needs children.
Okay.
And it's just an awesome organization, obviously very close to my heart.
Yeah.
And so my daughter and I are going to do a little toy drive for that this year.
Sweet. I love that. That's so special. We do the shoebox every year, that Samaritan's Purse initiates.
Yeah.
They have a huge drive of shoeboxes that go to needy children in the world. And so we always participate in that through our church. And then, of course, we've done the angel tree before. And you have too, right?
Yeah, we've done angel tree. Yeah. And
so it's so cool.
It is. I love giving back this time of year. It's one of my favorite things.
It's important.
It is important.
It's important. I think it's easy to get so focused on our own families and making sure our kids have the best Christmas ever.
Yeah.
But there are some kids out there that don't have any Christmas at all.
Especially this year.
Yeah. And we're so blessed. If you live in America, you're blessed.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's so much we can do.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of giving, we're so excited to talk to Joel Smallbone, as For King and Country has just given us this beautiful record. And so thank you so much for being here to talk about it today, Joel.
Thank you for having me, ladies. I'm literally in the heart of California. We're making our way to a Drummer Boy Drive-In concert. So this is very real time right now. So thanks for your patience.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And for those unfamiliar with For King and Country, can you just take a moment and introduce the band and how did the band come to be? How was it formed?
Yes. So For King and Country is comprised of my brother and myself, brother Luke, and myself. We're originally from Australia, but we live in Nashville, Tennessee now. So we've got this it's a very weird dynamic of accents where we go to Australia and everyone's like, mate, where are you from? We come to America and we're like, man, where are y'all from? And so we're sort of nomads. But For King and Country really came from this idea of, as a name, this kind of British mantra. Australia's part of the British Commonwealth. And so we thought, what a cool mantra to have, this idea of, they would chant it going into battle. So it became this is why we do music, for King and Country, for the people, and so on. So it's been a fun journey so far. 8 years in.
Wow.
That's awesome. I love it. And I love your music. And one of the things that I love the most is how vulnerable you all are with with just everything that you write and do. How has that shaped? How's your vulnerability shaped you and impacted your relationship with your fans?
Oh, good question. We had a lot of time kind of preceding For King and Country officially formed. We were an independent pop duo. We went by the name Joel and Luke very creatively. And because I'm Joel, he's Luke. And so we had this opportunity to really explore who we were as a brother duo, who we were as musicians, what kind of music we wanted to write. And we just found at every turn that this idea of honesty and vulnerability, writing from personal experience about what we saw, whether it's about love or life or God or anything in between, it became very connected to us, and in turn very connected to the listeners. And so it's been a way of life. And it's not all kind of green grass, red roses and blue skies, because there is a vulnerability to it. You're putting yourself out there and kind of saying, hey, not only is this my art, but this is my story, and do you resonate? But it's been very special to see, even down to this year, people really connecting at such a deep heart level that makes it all worth it, really.
I love that.
Especially this year. Yeah. And it's it's kind of a common question. You ask people how do you want to be remembered at the end of your life? Well, Like in the future, how would you like for King and Country to be remembered?
Oh, you're diving in deep. I love it. I think authenticity is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think positivity is another part of what we hope to be remembered for too, because you got to think, like, music has this uncanny way of bypassing the head and going straight to the heart.
Yeah.
And that can be beautiful. It can also be frightful. You know, you can really, it can change the way you look at life or yourself or other people in a positive and a negative way. And so our deepest hope has been to write, to perform, to present from this place of positivity and authenticity, so that people can resonate with not only the message, but also that we can have this in the time of a pandemic, for instance,
right?
In the time of social unrest, racial unrest, political division, we can have a unifying effect versus creating more lines, because no one needs another dividing line in the sand at this point.
No.
I love that. I think art is one of those things that does unite us, you know, and it helps us express our feelings when we can't come up with words. So I know you're an artist, you know, you create and you tour, you do all these things, you record. What's your favorite part?
Oh, I think the culmination is live, and that's what's been so hard for so many musicians, ourselves included, this year. It's like, look, the whole world has been robbed of something, their health, their economics, you know, whatever. But for us, it's been the live presentation, because you look at it, you go, you write these songs, you have this kind of heart connect, they go out on the radio, you know, they go onto Spotify or Apple Music and so on. But the real culminating moment, this beautiful moment, is when you have these real experiences, each of you, with these songs. And then people from different colors and creeds, and they all come together for this one kind of moment that can be really nuclear. And you get to experience them in real time. No other form of the arts really offers that. Like, filmmaking does not offer that. A painting doesn't offer that, but music does. And I just think it's the culmination. It really is. And starting the tour just recently, this Drama Boy Drive-In tour, it was really special to see just that happen. We just released this record not long ago, and here we are experiencing it live with people in such a short amount of time. It's special.
I bet it's an interesting feeling when you're on stage and you see people singing along, and you know they're singing along because they've been streaming your music or they downloaded it. I mean, that's got to be incredible.
I remember always surprised, but I remember the first time. You know, because we'd been working as a band for many years, and we'd been turned down by most every major label in LA or New York, and so we were Luke had just gotten married. He was working at a call center. I was doing road managing for politicians very randomly, and then it happened. We signed the record deal, and we were literally, if you can picture it, we were at a radio station. Our first single had just been released, and I was in the toilet. I was washing my hands, so the deed was done. But then the radio station was playing on the speakers, and you know, sure enough, as I'm washing my hands, I hear that overhead speaker start playing the song, and I look up, and I literally think I verbalized, "Is this how it's going to happen? Like, this is the first time. Is right here in the toilet." But even from that day to this, it's just been this. Every time you sort of. It's what you said. It's seeing the people sing the song that you go, man, that represents a life and a heart and a story. And seeing that in real time is very special.
I bet. Let's talk about your new album. It's amazing, A Drummer Boy Christmas, that you just released. And can you just tell us a little bit about what was that like, and like take us through your journey in writing that, because you wrote it in the middle of the pandemic, right?
Oh wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Look, Christmas music and for King and Country have sort of been synonymous since the beginning of the band. It dates back to 22, which is the year we released our first album, and we were just so excited to travel and do live shows that we just made this decision mid-year. We're like, we're going to do a Christmas single. Yeah. Girls, we had no Christmas tour, but we had no Christmas singles.
Yeah.
We had no Christmas album. So we shoved ourselves into an old factory. We came up with these renditions of classic Christmas songs. One of them was Little Drummer Boy. And we were very on the nose about it. We just basically said, you know what? We're going to put a bunch of drums on a song about drums. And from that day to this, it's just been one of those moments. I mean, I had a TSA guy at the airport say to me, like, "Hey, you're the drummer boy guy."
Yeah.
Like,
oh, wow.
it's become this beautiful.
Fantastic.
Thank you. This beautiful kind of synergy with the band. And so when we came into this year, we were looking at, the reality of the pandemic and even thinking forward to like Christmas 2020, it's been such a hard year globally. We just feel like Christmas 2020 is going to be one of the most radical, beautiful Christmases that the world has ever experienced. And so we worked very hard, went into the studio, like you said, in the middle of the pandemic. Some of it was recorded in Copenhagen, some in LA. I mean, we weren't there, but different people from all over the world literally worked on this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this album, I mean, it really is such a hope-filled album.
It really is,
and Little Drummer Boy, my kids are like in love with that song. It's produced really well. So that's interesting to hear you say that it's kind of like a conglomeration from around the world. I love that.
Yeah.
And what was it like for you? I mean, we're in a hopeless time, It's still kind of an unknown time. To sing Christmas songs in the middle of that, I bet that was awesome.
We literally, if you could picture it, we went into this studio in Nashville and we divided up into different rooms to kind of keep a little bit of social distance. And we brought in it's 95 degrees outside, but we wore sweaters and put up some Christmas lights and really kind of created the Christmas ambiance. And actually, to be honest, it was a real reprieve for us as a band, as we're trying to grapple with, uncertainty financially as a group. We're trying to grapple with, what can we do? I think there's part of it that's like, what can we even do as musicians to offer a little bit of healing through this time? And so to have that as a focus in the middle of all of this fear and questions and was actually, as you'd imagine, was real hope giving for us, which I think directly transferred to the album itself.
Oh, it did.
Isn't it just like God to give us, I don't know, just the dream and the desire to create something hopeful and new in the midst of such a dark time in our country?
There's a lot. I mean, I look at it and I go, man, the medical community by the end of this pandemic is just going to be exhausted. I think on the spiritual level, pastors and therapists are going to be exhausted by the end of this thing. And I really feel convicted that it is part of the arts community's responsibility in 2021 to help piece the world back together. We're the one group, as the pastors and the therapists and the medical community have been out there, and the leaders of countries and states have been out there trying to solve this thing. We're the one group that sat in our home and hopefully created. And so I think you're going to see this beautiful in 2021 and beyond, and you're already seeing it, this beautiful influx of music and art that's going to represent the healing of America and the world, really.
Yeah. Oh, I so agree. And I want to talk about the original. You have two original songs, but the one Heavenly Host, I have it on repeat all the time. It's so good.
We love it.
And I just want to know what was going through your minds in writing that originally. What was on your heart?
Yeah. The way the story came about was when we started looking at the album, we had a list of classics, and it's a daunting thing to write a Christmas song because you're dealing with some of the most nostalgic, beautiful, frankly, I think some of the most well-written songs ever. And you trying to find your way in that is very daunting as a writer. And so the two things we sort of nailed down were like, okay, a lot of songs about Mary, and rightfully so. Obviously, a lot of songs about Jesus Christ, and rightfully so. And there's a lot of songs about the traditions of Christmas, and rightfully so. We didn't feel like the traditions like Frosty the Snowman and chestnuts roasting on an open fire had a place in this record.
Yeah.
We felt it needed to be spiritual. And so then we sort of narrowed that lens down to, okay, here are some characters that are really dynamic in the Jesus biblical story that are kind of unsung heroes. Mm-hmm. One of them set of people, the shepherds. The shepherds are this. They were kind of the low life workers of that day. They were the night shift guys and girls. They were the ones that were kind of the outcasts that were sleeping through the day, watching these sheep. And the fact that the first kind of miraculous sign, if you will, on a corporate level was not showing, there were not these angels showing up to these, high and mighty Herods or whoever else. It was to the low lives. Exactly. We just thought that was such a beautiful sentiment. And so we put ourselves in their shoes, if you will, and wrote it from a first person perspective. But I mentioned Luke because Luke loves yard work. I don't know why. I don't like yard work, but he was literally, it was midsummer. I think it was out mowing his lawn, and Ben Backus, who's our musical director and producer, one of the producers on the project, he sent Luke a piano line, and they literally, thank God for Steve Jobs and iPhones. Right. They just toggled back for an hour on voice memos, sending melodies and lyrics, and that's how the initial song was sparked. And then I sort of came in and just made it a load better. I'm joking, but I came in and was a part of it afterwards. But it was just this very kind of peculiar way that the song actually came about.
Yeah, I love it. It's a really favorite favorite Christmas song. Yeah. Also, the Carol of Joseph. I love that you took the perspective of Joseph, because we always hear Mary. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that song?
Yeah, well, again, you hit the nail on the head. That was part of the inside look at these characters was going, okay, again, Mary has been really loved and celebrated. Jesus, the wise men, like all these different characters. But Joseph, here's a guy, I'll try and put it in modern terms, who, first of all, let's just say he's a stepdad. He's not even a real dad. So he's not a legitimate father. Secondly, he's a little bit by nature a social outcast, because this was he's aligning with a woman who had a very, very reasonable standing culturally in that day to say, I'm out. Like, you cheated on me. So, or at least perceivably you did. And so I'm out. Yeah. And yet, in his great we don't know a lot about Joseph historically, but in his great humility, I believe, he said, no, I'm not going to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, or throw you out as a young woman. I'm going to embrace you. I'm going to embrace this child, and I'm going to protect you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to believe in you, both as a mother and as a son. Even though I'm not the central figure of this story. I'm just a small part of it. And so we dropped right into that moment of like everything that Joseph must have been feeling in that he sees the baby, he sees his wife to be, he feels like a failure because they're literally in a cave, like in an animal stable, and yet he was kind of one of the first believers in Jesus. He was able to pick up that child and say, I believe in you, son. And there's this great ping pong back between Joseph looking at Mary saying, I believe in you, Mary looking at Joseph saying, I believe in you, and then them looking at Jesus Christ, baby Jesus, and saying, and we believe in you. And so we just thought, it's a really magical concept.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so special. I love that. I also really I think one of the most meditative moments in the album is the Christmas Monologue. I love that. And it's something that we so need to hear this season. So how did that idea form? And, talk about that a little bit.
Well, going back to 2012, we set out to do that Christmas tour. And it's funny how when we were a bit, we bit off more than we could chew. But there's something about when you do that, when you really just dig in, you discover things. And so we've done a handful of Christmas tours from that day to this. And that monologue was kind of founded live. It was each night we would do this caroling moment and we would just sort of very impromptu share about the spectacle of the contradiction, really, of what Jesus did, and no social media, no, presidential campaigns, none of that. And yet, I mean, our calendar, girls, is dictated to by his birth. It's the most read book ever written. It's this incredible thing. And we only know about 3 years of his life, really. And yet he has had this incredible impact on the world. So that monologue became, when we started looking at the record, we thought, man, this is the anchor point in some ways. Drummer Boy is a song, and this monologue is the anchor point of the record. And we just transplanted it live, and I just re-recorded the kind of the sentiment of it for the album.
Oh, I love it. And it's so timely. It's so timely. So that's really cool.
So I would love to know kind of your vision for what you are hoping this album will do for people this season as they listen.
It was our hope to create, particularly this year, to create a hope-filled spiritual soundtrack for people to, in their hardship, but also in their hope, to put on and go, I can look forward to a new day. Because let's face it, this is not that different than 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You had social unrest in that time. You had tragedy in that time. And God intervened. And I think a similar thing can happen this Christmas and beyond.
Yeah. I love that. And as you're out on tour, like literally driving on tour right now, what do you want to say to people that come out to see you or that are making their way out to see you guys?
Well, the cement is still soft, as they say in that, because we're very early on in the tour. And so honestly, girls, I think both Luke and I are still grappling with what the heartbeat of the night is. I mean, we know it's Drummer Boy, we know it's this monologue, we know that, but we're in very real time working out what the message is. I think one of the things that rings very true to me is that we need to fight for unity, but that doesn't necessarily mean uniformity.
That's right.
You can have unity without uniformity. I'm actually reminded, I've told this story live, but the day I got sworn in as an American citizen, it was a couple of years ago now, and the judge presiding over us summed up the United States and gave us a charge like I'd never heard. He said this, he said, bring your culture, bring your art, bring your food, which I was like, yeah, I like that, and I thought, you know what? That's unity, but not uniformity.
That's
right. And so how can we, when we really like our dividing lines right now, how can we really fight for a sense of unity? And I think my hope is that this tour, by nature of it, and this season, by the nature and spirit of it, will accomplish that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And as we're heading into Christmas, what are you most hoping for you personally and your family this year?
So some of it's very low level at this point. A part of it is I will be very pleased with everything we're facing if we were able to. I think we will, but if we're able to finish this tour really well, obviously, you can imagine there's a lot of protocols. We're kind of in our own little, to use the NBA terminology, we're in our own little bubble of a tour, hence us being in this kind of little car together.
Yeah.
But I think if we can, for our audience and for our team and deliver this album and this message to people over the next month and a half, and do it successfully and safely, which is what we're really endeavoring to do, I will be very proud. And honestly, that'll be Christmas enough for me. Yeah, I think we end on the 20th or the 21st of this month, and so it'll be of December rather. So it'll be just in time to kind of sit back. And I think we're all going to be pretty, as we'd say in Australia, pretty knackered by the time the tour's finished. So a bit of rest and health will be just what the doctor ordered at that point.
Oh yeah, a good deep breath.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've loved having you here. And before we let you go, we have a question that we ask all of our guests at the end of the show. Our show is called Hope Unabridged. And so we like to find out, where are you finding hope these days?
I'll preface by saying I could very well be the cup half full guy, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think there is this sentiment, even with what we faced this year, that the culture and that the planet is taking a turn for the worst. And I actually feel completely that the world and culture has the opportunity, and in fact is going in a different direction because of certain things like this. In the first time in human history, every sovereign country in the world recognizes that slavery is awful and that it is wrong, and that we're fighting to eliminate it.
Yeah.
It's tied to that, the sex trade and the human traffic, speaking of pandemics and epidemics, that is getting I believe the spotlight that it deserves to be dealt with in legislation, in communities talking about it. And then you've got this other, I believe, a very important conversation in not only in romance, but in just the way men perceive women and women perceive men.
Yeah.
Call it equality, call it whatever you would like, but there's this very real conversation happening where we're looking at each other and honoring each other in a whole new way than we never have throughout human history.
Yeah.
And then you have this kind of, thirdly, hell of a year of racial unrest and social unrest and political unrest and the pandemic. But even that, I feel like it's an opportunity for us to look at where we are hurt and look at where we are falling short and do something about it. And I believe we are doing something about it as a country and as a globe. And so I come into this season, I come into 2021 hopeful that we're actually hard conversations and that we're doing the hard work. And because of technology and connectedness, it can look, because we have so much information, it can look like tragedy is at every turn. But that's just because 100 years ago, it took 3 weeks for a message to get from Australia to the United States, and now it takes 3 seconds, So I come at this, speaking of hope unabridged. My hope is unbridged with where we can go in the future. But it's going to take all of us to get there. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And thank you for saying all of that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. We've loved chatting with you. Thank you again for the Christmas album to carry us through this season. It's delightful.
Yeah, this has been a treasure. Thank you.
Ladies.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your thoughtful questions and your strong ladies, and thank you for your decorations as well.
You like it?
Very,
Christmas.
very classy.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today on Hope Unabridged. We'd like to remind you, if you're watching us on Good Life 45, you can also listen to these episodes everywhere you listen to podcasts.
If you're listening and you would like to see the filmed version of this show or any of our other shows, check us out on Good Life 45 or on our YouTube channel and our app.
We hope that something you've heard today really blessed you, and we would love for you to share this show with those you love. Just hit that share button on your podcast app or on YouTube and send it to a friend. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would help us a lot. With this program, we are finding hope in the unedited stories of our lives, and we want you to do the same.